Hello and welcome. I am Matt Roddy, and this is the Greater Prescott podcast, where we talk about, you guessed it, all things Greater Prescott. I want to welcome my guest, Laurie Ott from Roasted Ott Coffee. Laurie, thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You guys, if you like coffee, are going to be fascinated by our conversation today.
I hope so.
I know I'm excited because growing up, my parents didn't drink coffee. So I was not exposed to coffee until I'm 37, I don't know, 32 or 33. And I've grown in my coffee. I don't know. My taste buds have grown for sure. And so I really appreciate a really good cup of coffee. And we're going to talk a lot about that today.
Good.
Yeah. So thanks for your time. I genuinely appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome.
We're also going to talk about this guy right here at some point. So I'm glad that we can use it as the backdrop.
Yep.
All right. To get things started, simply, where were you born and raised? What'd you do when you were a kid? And just kick it off.
I was born in Des Moines, Iowa, to a farm family. So
Is there anything else in Iowa?
a lot of insurance companies,
Okay.
especially in Des Moines, in the central Iowa. It's a big insurance
Okay.
industry place.
Weird.
For some reason.
Okay.
There's quite a few meat packing plants.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So what'd you do when you were growing up?
danced a lot.
Okay.
I did a lot of athletic stuff. I started ice skating at about 2 and dancing at 4.
Okay.
So I did a lot of that.
Any specific style of dance other than, you were a baby, so
When
you're
I
just
was
getting
then,
started.
Just typical combination classes, tap, belly, and jazz.
Yeah.
But so I did that all growing up and ended up going to ASU with a bachelor and did a Bachelor of Fine Arts in dance.
Okay. Wow. So you took it really seriously,
this-
I imagine, when you were growing up.
Well, I didn't take it as seriously when I was growing up until I realized at a later
Give you
age
just a little more room.
that I really wanted to take it seriously as a young adult.
Yeah.
Came down here at ASU to go to college
Yeah.
and started with a different couple things
Mm-hmm.
and
As in a different major.
different majors, yeah. And finally decided, what, I really want to dance while I can.
Good point.
And
The window's
I'm
not.
here, I can do it, and I did that and got a secondary education on top of it.
All right. How
So-
ASU?
My parents, well, going back to growing up, I grew up on and off a farm. My grandparents owned a farm. We lived on it there and moved around a lot to other places while my dad worked. And my dad was a steam fitter, union steam fitter, plumber, built commercial properties basically. And there wasn't a lot of work there about the time I was graduating. And about 3 months after I graduated high school, they decided they were moving down here, and he worked out at the Palo Verde for a few years. So they moved down here then, and a couple years later, I followed because I couldn't afford to go to college in Iowa. I was in that.
It was
in that range where my parents made too much for me to get help, but not enough to send me to college.
Yeah.
And so I ended up moving down here so I could go to school.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
here's a example. When I started at ASU, I was non-resident, so I had to go part-time my first year until
Till you got your resident.
Yeah. So full-time even, $325 a semester when I started ASU, and that was in 1983.
That's when I was born.
So, yes. So there you go.
Now you don't need to tell us your age.
No, I got a late start in school, and I didn't go right out of high school. Of course, that was a couple of years later.
Actually, this is an interesting topic to me. How come? Meaning, I was the first kid in my whole extended family to go to college, so it was obvious that from day one I was going to go to college. Looking back, it wasn't the right fit. Meaning, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious why you didn't start
I
immediately?
I had a boyfriend, my high school boyfriend. You know, and I didn't want to leave when they moved down here.
Okay.
If I'd have known, you know, that it was that much easier to go to school, I probably would have.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But I was working in a grocery store.
Okay.
Hy-Vee is a Iowa-based grocery store chain, much like Bash's here.
Okay.
I was working there. I started when they decided to move. I had entered into a radiologic tech program or X-ray tech, and when they decided to move, I was like, all right, I can't do this full time because I couldn't live with them, you know. So I ended up leaving that and getting work full time, getting a hired full time, or not. I was already hired, getting a full time position at the grocery store in the bakery.
Okay.
So I started. They needed cake decorators, and I started doing that.
Okay. Did you have any experience cake decorating?
No, I learned right there.
Okay. All right.
And I'm self-taught. I've done that my whole life. Since then, I've done I do a lot of wedding cakes. I've kind of given that up because I don't feel well when I do those. I have issues with all of the flour and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I
So
tend
back
to not
in the
do a
day,
lot.
had a wedding cake maker.
Yeah, wedding cake. I really started with pies when I was a lot younger.
Okay.
I prefer to do that.
Okay.
But
Can you still do pies without any? Okay.
I do that with no problem.
My wife would love to probably get a couple tips, so she loves baking.
It's very difficult up here with the altitude.
Yeah, she should probably.
Changes things.
It would probably help her to know some of those things because she reads directions and goes, "It's not working like it's supposed to."
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of little things to figure out.
Yeah.
And I started, and I, you know, like I said, I was in Iowa. I grew up doing that kind of stuff with my grandmothers in the kitchen, entering into state fair competitions at 10 years old. So
yeah,
you
were in it.
I did a lot of that. And then
That's so fun.
kind of moving into the decorating thing was, well, I fried donuts and decorated cakes.
Yep.
That's what my job was in the bakery.
Yep.
So, and after a couple of years, I'm like, okay, I don't want to work in this grocery store bakery for my whole life. So I decided it was time to start looking at going to school, and I finally convinced my husband at that time to come down here and go to school.
Okay.
He worked for the grocery store also, and he had just got put back onto a night shift stock crew.
Yep.
And he's like, all right, let's go.
Yep.
So that changed everything. I came down here and started figuring that out, and I ended up with a dance degree and a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Dance and secondary education. So.
Interesting. Okay.
And
what was ASU like? I went to ASU.
It was
a little different
40,000
now than it was when I went, much less when you went.
Yes. Yeah, it was smaller, but it was the enrollment was 40,000 when I was there.
That's huge. That is wild.
And that was in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So it took me a while. I didn't graduate till 90.
Okay.
But I was working on Bachelor of Fine Arts and a art minor.
Okay.
So studio art.
Yeah.
And so I finally graduated in 90 with like 204 credit hours, which is ridiculous.
You should just get a couple,
PhD
maybe 3 majors. Yeah. You're an overachiever, huh?
I guess. Or just not very smart about how I go about things.
Oh, man.
So I did that, and in 1990, my high school sweetheart and I split up during that time. And in 90 or 89, I met my husband.
Okay.
And we decided after about 6 weeks we were going to get married, and we got married in March of 90.
Okay. So, all right.
So that was a pretty short engagement, but we're still married.
Yeah,
so
congratulations. How many years?
Over 30 years.
30
It'll be
years.
31 in March.
Man, that's awesome. Emily and I had our 10-year in the summertime.
Very good. Congratulations.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
at least it is for us.
Yeah.
So you graduate college, and you're a dancer,
I was
apparently.
a dancer, but I'm a dancer. But I graduated college, and by the time I was done with my student teaching at the end of my senior year, I realized that I didn't want to be in the public schools.
Okay.
There were a lot of little things
Of
that
course.
I didn't like,
Yeah.
but
I'm going to go on a quick tangent. So I think that one of the things a lot of these programs could do to improve is to get you, who signed up to be a teacher, in the first semester that you sign up, get your tushy in a classroom just to get a flavor for it.
right off
Right?
the bat.
Just trying to get people more into whatever it is they think. Because again, we're typically very young when we go to college.
Right.
And like, do you want to keep going to college for this?
Right.
And if not, that's fine. Then
Probably do a few internships before
Yes.
you even go to college.
I actually, yeah.
Would be
So college is going to change. The way you and I went to college is not going to be like this for much longer. It's a
don't think so.
fascinating conversation because we're going to finally move back to, this is a great example. If you want to learn to roast coffee for a living, just go get hired on at the best possible roaster that you possibly can, and just think of it like a trades, and just start to learn. Like a majority of the jobs out there don't require. I'm going on a tangent. This is a passion of mine. They just don't require a college degree.
A lot of them don't. When you get higher up in, if you have any interest in getting up into any kind of management positions,
100%.
that's going to need
If
it.
you want to move in corporate America, you're 98% of the time you need a college degree. Things like that.
The biggest thing that there is another thing that college does for you, and it's social skills and preparing you to navigate paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork. Not just paperwork, but paperwork for all kinds of different
All
things.
kinds of
How
stuff.
do you figure out, unless you've had some kind of formal education and had to navigate your way through financial aid packets and scholarship packets and all that stuff, how do you ever figure out? That's how you connect the dots to getting a home loan. And
Yeah. Where can you learn these things?
Investing so that you have a retirement.
Yep.
There's just, a lot of,
Yeah.
you get a lot of stuff like that from some of your college. You learn a lot of
I agree.
historical stuff, especially that you don't learn in high school, because a lot of our history is a little bit
Yes.
biased. But you learn a lot of college that doesn't maybe directly pertain to what you're doing, but indirectly it helps you with life skills.
Agreed. And so that's kind of the other part of the token or of the coin that people right now are talking about. You may not need a college degree, but obviously some of the skills you learn in college are really important. So how can we kind of navigate? Maybe you don't need to go to college, but you still need to learn.
Yeah, there's some things that are basic sentence structure, or some of there is a lot of writing, and you read a lot of things nowadays that are just not put out well. Their spelling's bad, and obviously you learn spell check, but that doesn't always tell you the grammatical
Right.
way
That
to
doesn't
use
help
something.
you
Right.
actually learn in
So,
Yep. I got on a tangent.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got married in '90, and I started looking at. My husband was in the fire service already.
Okay.
He worked for City of Mesa, and I became very interested in what he was doing, and I started navigating my way through testing for fire service, and
Okay.
I got hired right away in Casa Grande.
Oh yeah.
Pretty
My
quick.
brother-in-law's down there.
I worked down there part-time
Okay.
for 4 years. And then in Gilbert, I worked there full-time. And then it still wasn't exactly where I wanted to be. I really wanted to work for Mesa.
Okay.
Mesa was a really good department at the time. The benefits were they're really
Yep.
good, most fire departments. But one thing they offered was retiree medical.
Okay.
And that was what I ended up why I ended up deciding I wanted to be in Mesa. So
Okay.
it took me 5 years
Okay.
of testing. I tested 13 times for different departments,
Okay.
and I got hired in about 5 years.
All right.
Of testing for Mesa. I tested for Mesa 3 times. Got hired my 3rd time.
And when you run us through a little bit of that process, you say fire service. I imagine that encompasses more than just one type of job. What does that mean?
Everything. Firefighters are problem solvers.
Okay.
That's what we do. That's what you. First of all, you're checking all your equipment on a daily basis. You have a truck full of equipment that you have to make sure is functional. Everybody thinks fire service and they think about fighting fires, but there are a lot of other things that you do, that public safety events. And
I would imagine that's actually in the minority of what they do.
Fire service,
fighting fires versus
fighting fire is about 20% of the biggest thing that we do is medical services. We go on medical calls, and that's everything, every kind of medical call.
Oh yeah.
So
were you a firefighter?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I haven't heard you use that term yet, so you've been saying fire service, and so I'm just trying to connect the dots.
Oh,
you were a firefighter.
Yeah, for City Mesa Fire Department.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Firefighter, paramedic.
I didn't know I was sitting across from a firefighter who loves coffee. Okay.
Well, you have to like coffee in the fire service because that's what keeps you awake on 24-hour stand-up shifts.
Okay.
Because you do have those, especially in the valley. It's very busy. The year I retired January 15, and we had run 70,000 calls that year. So people have this a lot of people have firefighters have a stigma that they sit around at the firehouse and play checkers. And
it's like cops eat donuts
we
all day,
didn't have a
right?
checkerboard.
Yeah.
Or a chessboard.
Yeah.
So some stations are slower, obviously.
Of
the
course.
outlying stations, there has to be coverage, so you got to have a station there. You have to have a crew because they have to meet a certain time standard for deployment.
Okay.
But yeah, we ran a lot of calls, and Mesa had 20 stations when I left.
Holy cow.
And I think they're up to 23.
Which is,
or 4
Mesa
now.
kept moving east.
Oh yeah,
you know,
they've gotten.
Because I lived along
big.
the 101 when I lived at University in Dobson, so obviously on the far west side, and then I lived at Dobson in Guadalupe, technically in Chandler, but right across across the little canal
you
was
see
Mesa.
Fire trucks down there.
Oh, of course.
That was one of our automatic aid stations.
Yep.
So, yeah. So I fight fire. I was an engineer. I always really liked driving.
Okay.
Before I got hired in with fire service, I was a test driver for General Motors out at the proving grounds.
No way.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Okay, you got to talk about this. I'm a huge automotive fanatic.
You saw what I was driving.
Yeah. Oh, of course. You don't have to tell me twice. Yes.
Yeah. So I really like vehicles.
Okay. Where'd that come from?
I got tired of being So when I graduated college, I was still working for Bashes. I worked for Bashes. I was a cashier though. I did not. That's just not a job that really suits me. Okay.
Yeah, it's not the right fit.
I did a lot of other things for them. I would get off the register and do all the stalking and that kind of stuff. But that was my title as a cashier, and I'm not. And I really don't care for that. Yep. I got done with college and started testing, and I'm like, I got to do something different. And I just left Bashes and started looking for other stuff. And Proving Grounds was it was a temporary, I was working for a temporary company, Ket Engineering, who provides test drivers for Proving Grounds. And so I was working for them, and I was test driving out at General Motors. They didn't hire their own, they used this engineering firm for their drivers. Okay. So I went down there, it was a week of testing with their Bob, I can't remember his name, Bob Sparks, I believe, with their test drive training, and I passed all their testing and got hired, so I was doing that. So I did that for a few months, and then I did that also while I was going through the part-time academy in Casa Grande.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I got hired there part-time, so there was kind of a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
But I really liked
You were driving a lot. That's kind of funny because is the proving grounds, or was that technically in East Mesa?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was in East Mesa, and it's...
Whereabouts did you guys live?
We lived at Standage and University.
Standage rings a bell.
West Mesa, right up the street from where you are.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
all right.
University and Alma School is major cross streets.
Yeah.
I had my senior year of college, or my junior year of college actually, I decided that I needed to be close to the school, but I was tired of living in apartments, so I bought a townhouse.
Yeah.
And two of the girls I danced with at school rented rooms for me. So, and it was cheaper for me to do that than pay rent.
Totally. Yeah. I did something very similar with my condo at Dobson University. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I actually refinanced. I took a loan out against my Hyundai Excel.
Wow, you do love driving.
For a down payment.
Yeah.
To buy that townhouse.
Yeah.
And then they moved in, and it saved, helped me a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
But then my senior year, I met Dan, and he ended up moving in.
Okay.
One of them moved out because she didn't want.
Yeah.
But so that was okay.
Yeah.
It worked, and we got married that spring, my senior year, and that's when I got interested in fire service. And I'm like, all right, I do not want to teach, so I need to start busting my butt and do this. The physical part tends to be the most difficult for women, especially.
Makes sense.
Or very, the bigger you are, the easier it is to move things, obviously.
Yeah.
But just also the more fit. But I'd been dancing my whole life and playing softball and swimming and all that. So I had a lot of that, but it took a while to get strong enough to get through the test every time.
Gotcha.
And pass it. And then the oral boards are another sticky stickler.
Okay.
There's a method you kind of have to learn and to get through those.
Okay. And you finally did it.
I finally got where I wanted to be in 95 and started with Mesa.
All right. So you were with Mesa 21 years?
I was with Mesa 20 years. 20. I was with Casa Grande for 4 years and Gilbert for a year before. Or a year and a half before in Mesa.
Yeah. Congratulations.
So.
I thought I was just talking to someone who made coffee. I just cannot tell you, it brings me so much happiness. I love learning about people's stories.
Well,
as you start to connect the dots, like, oh, well, now I see why a firefighter would have been a potentially a good fit for you.
It was really good. I really am not a 9-to-5 job person. I don't like to sit in one place for a long period of time. I move around a lot.
That's good to know.
And I'm interested in, obviously you can see I do a lot of different things. I have a real creative streak that I do. I do a lot of artwork, or I did.
Okay.
That's where doing wedding cakes.
Gotcha. That creative artistic outlet.
And then that's kind of what drove me to just starting to roast coffee.
Okay. So let's, before we dive into this, you retire in the
I retired
2015, 2016. What about Dan? When did he
retired
finish?
The end of 2013.
Okay.
The December of 13.
Okay.
How
many years was Dan in?
He was in Mesa for 27 years.
Okay. All right.
So
good job, Dan. Thumbs up.
Yep.
Okay.
He retired December of 13. Also as an engineer.
Okay.
And he had given up his medic cert a few years prior to that. He was just tired of being a medic.
Yep.
Being a medic's a little bit, you're still a firefighter, but that's an added component to your job. And it's just adds a level of stress and
of course
decision making that after a while you get tired of.
Makes perfect sense. Okay.
There's the term compassion fatigue comes about when with public safety or military people.
Thinking like a therapist as well. Just I mean, it is heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but he retired end of 13.
All right.
I stayed. I we just got an apartment. We had moved up here in 2011 full time.
Wow.
I know.
What?
We were
You guys are crazy.
We just couldn't stay down there anymore. We couldn't stay in the valley anymore. It just
Me too.
we were getting angry, and as probably a lot of that came with the job, but we were getting
Doesn't help, but yeah.
angry and couldn't get anywhere where there was no traffic.
Yeah.
And the reason we live on the street we do here is because it's a dead end. The house has a basement. It's over half an acre.
Yeah.
And there's hardly any traffic up and down our street. We made the mistake of buying a little house right on Demers when we first bought a house up here for part-time, because we came up on our Kellys and didn't realize that the traffic on that street was
It's a through
through
street.
traffic to other areas. Yes.
I take it every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
to get down here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're like,
You learned.
I can't do this. Because every time a car goes by, I'm like,
Well, and also
It's
every
too
time
fast,
you have
you
to
know?
pull out, anyways.
yeah, back the trailer into the driveway or anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, but we had to leave down there because we were getting
It wears
getting
on
a
you.
little
It wore
angry.
on me. It wore on my wife, Emily. And especially, we're just 2 hours up here.
Mm-hmm.
Yet it's a world's difference.
A huge difference.
And we still have almost all the amenities you really need.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really need something, you just go south an hour into North Phoenix and you can get it all.
We have very good friends still down there.
Of course.
Like I was mentioning, the trainers that
Oh,
we
yeah.
work with. But then they come up here on the weekends periodically and get away from it themselves.
Yeah. You shared before the podcast, but tell the people when did you first come out to Prescott, and how did that, and then you ended up getting a place here, in 2011.
Okay, so I had the first thing was roasting. I had started roasting in about 2004, and then and Julie and Dave that own the Wild Iris, I was gonna do some roasting with them, and I did, and I have. And in 2007, I went from just doing home roasting to buying the Diedrich, the older one of these, a little bit smaller, 3 kilo Diedrich. I bought in 2007.
Okay.
And then I started doing that, roasting on that at a little bit bigger batches.
Yes.
And at some point we decided we wanted to be in Prescott part-time. So in that same year, we bought this little house up here to come up on our 4 days off.
Okay.
Fast forward a couple years, I'd been roasting on a Diedrich, or on my commercial roaster for a couple years, starting a real small business, just very small. And just, providing coffee to coworkers and family and friends. And Julie had decided she had opened her coffee house and realized she needed some bakery space. And in 2011 or 2010 decided to start this kitchen, the commercial kitchen, for shared use space so that she could use it and other people.
Yeah.
So we built this out, and in 11 we opened this, and pretty quickly had Scott of Premier Catering working out of it, and a couple other people that work at farmers markets. I don't know if they're still in town.
Okay.
But
yeah.
And then some food trucks started working. Montana Barbecue was one of our
Yep.
first vendors out of
Not
here.
Mike. Forget his name. I've met him and his wife.
Lynn Jeffries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really
and-
nice people.
Yes, and I
Good
can't
food.
remember her husband. Might be Mike Jeffrey.
Okay.
I don't remember her husband's name. But yeah, they do. They have a good thing down there. Them and a few other places
Yep.
that were people running. And then my roaster we put in here at the end of the year when we moved. We moved
Okay.
up here full time in November of 11.
Okay.
And
Man.
brought the roaster up.
Yep.
Got it installed, and right in the same spot. Oh no, we had to make a new hole for this one.
Okay. A hole in the roof. Okay. Need a
So,
bigger vent.
Yeah. had to be bigger.
Yep.
And we decided we needed to move it because it was having it over there didn't work very
Gotcha.
well.
Okay.
Anyway, so early 2012. Yeah, 2011. We moved up here.
Yeah.
We decided, okay, we can commute for the couple years.
Yeah.
So we commuted by the fall of 2013. After commuting for that amount of time, we worked 24-hour shifts.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we'd go down, work our shift, and drive back. And by the end of that summer, or by the fall, Dan was starting to get a little too
It's a lot.
angry on our drives home.
Yeah. It's
Just
a lot.
not doing well with it.
It's a lot.
I told him, maybe you should just retire.
Mm.
And it was like a flip switched.
Yeah, it went from a frown to a smile.
Yes.
Yeah.
He immediately was happier. So
Yeah.
he retired the end of that year.
Okay.
And I got an apartment and just stayed down there for my 5 days that
Yep.
I needed to be down there.
Yep.
I did my overtime if I could.
Yeah.
And then came up here for my 4 days
Okay.
off. So,
All right.
and that worked.
Yes, that definitely alleviates.
Then I only had to do that for a year.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Man, you have logged some miles, lady.
Yeah.
Holy moly.
So,
Good
and
for you.
I started driving. Well, I was driving pretty young, pretty early in my career with fire service. So, because I drove in Gilbert also.
Okay.
But I got made engineer after about 3 years in Mesa.
Okay.
So my last 15 years were as an engineer, and I was on a ladder truck. That's what I preferred.
Man. Go big or
So,
go home.
yeah.
I'm kind of getting this sense out of you.
I guess so.
A little bit. Okay, so you retire, and then you full-time retire to Prescott.
Right.
That's where you were living. Run us through. So you've got a little roaster. Let's just kind of back up. You obviously had a little joke about, hey, if you're a firefighter, you gotta like coffee.
Well,
Where's the kind of love of coffee come from? And then just kind of dive into what you do. You've already talked some about kind of how it's come about,
Right.
friends, family, of interest. Just having an
I
interest.
just started with a little home roaster,
Okay.
a little fluid bed roaster, because I knew that I could find good coffee. Knew that I could find it, and I could find fresh coffee, but I couldn't find it. I would go to grocery stores. I was drinking coffee from, I shouldn't probably name names. A couple different
Yeah.
places, and it just was never, you never knew if it was going to be fresh when you opened it. And fresh means within even 2 months old after roasting, because it'll last 6 or 8 weeks, but pretty soon there's a lot of oil in coffee, and as it sits after roasting, that oil starts to become rancid, just like an old jar of peanut butter. You open up and you smell it, and it smells off.
Cashews that we forgot in the back of the pantry.
Right. That oil starts to spoil, and it affects the flavor of the coffee. It also was not, a lot of coffee is at one point you just roasted it. There wasn't any finesse or artisan to roasting.
It's commercial, and that's what
But-
the commercial companies do. It's about
Right.
quantity,
Right.
typically, over quality.
Yes, and finding it as cheap as they could.
Yeah.
And which is another area we'll get into, is
Yeah.
the sustainability of coffee. So anyway, I just started roasting it myself. I found a place I could get green coffee beans, a small supplier. There was one in Arizona,
Okay.
Coffee Bean Corral, and that's where I started getting it from. And pretty soon I couldn't drink anything else. I just roasted all my coffee, and then it kind of developed into, well, Julie she's like, I'm going to open a coffee house. Do you want to roast coffee? Like, okay, so I need to buy a roaster.
Yeah.
And then I bought the commercial roaster and started developing myself on that, which takes a while.
Of course.
Completely different kind of roasting. And so after years of doing different coffee profiles, and a profile is, I have a page that, I have a page that is a chart. It's an Excel spreadsheet basically with with times and temperatures. Times along this, and I write down every 30 seconds I'd record a temperature.
Okay.
So you can record and keep track of how of everything you're putting in that roast. You got drum heat, you have air that you can adjust.
Okay.
Basically on this, that's what I can adjust. I can just adjust the heat, and I can adjust how much air is going through the roasting drum. The roasting drum is inside, not that. The big tray over there is a cooling bin.
All right.
So, so the things I control are the heat and the air and the time it spends to get to certain phases of the development.
Okay.
That took years. That takes years. It still takes time. Every time I get a new bag of coffee, I have to roast that coffee, and I'll use a profile from the last bag I had, or the last harvest that I had, but it may not come out the same. So that everyone needs a little adjustment.
Yep. Makes sense.
So it took years to get to where I could put a coffee in there and be pretty sure of the profile I needed to use. I tend to have a little bit longer profiles than some roasters.
Okay.
I know there are roasters that will just put it in at the highest heat possible and let it roast and don't make a lot of adjustments. But I find I do make adjustments. I adjust the air throughout the roast. I adjust the heat. I've learned a lot by reading there's a few different people that have written books. Scott Rao is one of them.
Okay.
And I use some of those method. I guess you can say it's their method.
Yeah.
It's just learning the different development phases of the coffee bean as it's roasting and figuring out how those affect the flavor.
Exactly.
So,
which is always changing.
Right. And then there are other things that affect that flavor, which have to do with how it's grown, where it's grown, how it's harvested, how it's processed after harvest.
So talk about that. One of the most and I shared this before the podcast. I didn't start drinking, or maybe it was during the podcast. Not until I was about 32 or 33. And
which is late.
Which is late. And I initially started by drinking kind of the sugary stuff. I was just tiptoeing into it.
Right.
And now I just need a dash of cream at best, and I'm pretty good. But it was not until we had some cartel coffee that I really realized I cannot believe that coffee tastes this good and this different, because we had bought a couple boutique blends from them and going, oh my gosh, these have totally different flavors, and they have legitimate flavors. Ones that you could give to probably a lot of people and they could pick out at least maybe one thing from it, and so that really got me interested in coffee.
Right.
And so you're going to go into where it's grown and the soil and the weather, and it's all of these things start to come together.
Affects it.
And this is just so fun.
One of the things I look for is when I'm purchasing my green coffee is I'm trying to make sure it's coming from somewhere that's using sustainable growing practices.
Okay.
Because the coffee industry has a big history. I mean, it started centuries ago. The Dutch were really big into coffee. They own a lot of coffee plantations still, but it wasn't a very good environmental practice when it was first started, because a lot of them would come in and burn down the rainforest and put up coffee plantations. So I try to get coffee that's primarily shade grown or on, say, biodynamic or regenerative farms. That where they're actually putting something back into the environment.
Gotcha.
They're growing. A lot of them are growing different. They're small growers, small farmers. A lot of them. They're growing multiple different crops. So coffee's just one of their things. They're growing crops that will sustain them or their community or their family.
Yeah.
They're getting. Try to get coffee that is more of the money that is going to buy the coffee is going to the farmer themselves.
Gotcha. Yep.
So I'm trying to work with importers I had one importer that I just started with who is building relationships with different growers,
Okay.
or small co-ops and individual growers.
Okay.
And so he helped me get a relationship coffee just recently, this Honduras that's over here.
Okay.
That actually the co-op director for Cafesmo emailed me. He's emailing roasters off a list.
Yeah.
I don't even know where he got my name, but he emailed me and wondered if I wanted to sample their coffee.
Okay.
He had a co-op in Honduras, and so send me some samples.
Yeah.
So I roasted and sampled that, and it was very good. I'm like, well,
Okay.
do you know an importer that I can use?
Yeah.
And so I got introduced to Michael of La Baya
All right.
Coffee Supply out of San Francisco also. Most of them are over there. That who is developing relationships with coffee growers.
Okay.
And
Like kind of the boots on the ground.
Yeah. So he's got a group that are doing, bringing in direct trade coffees, basically, essentially. So it's just trying to cut out the middlemen. The coffee industry is so huge, and it's such a complicated market. It's very difficult to find the transparency, in it. So I'm doing my best.
Yeah, that transparency word, we as consumers are starting to realize how little transparency there's been in all these spaces, and it's starting to really.
You find it in cocoa to chocolate.
Okay.
Also.
Yeah. So the quicker you can cut through everything and just tell me what it is. Don't give me. So I'm glad that that's a movement.
And I'm really trying to focus on that.
Okay.
And at the same time, I'm very picky about taste. I'm pretty sure my husband thinks I'm a super taster. There's a category of people that are actually super tasters. I have never actually been tested as a super taster. But just an example, 2 years ago, I decided I was going to go do a Q grader class, which a Q grader is quality grader for the Coffee Quality Institute.
Okay.
It's a national Q certification that you can. It's actually an international certification that you can get.
Makes sense.
For testing, for quality testing coffee and taste test, basically quality testing. But it's for Arabica coffees. This is the one that I got. There's another one that's also for Robusta coffees.
All right.
And so I'd done coffee cuppings, professional coffee cuppings in the past at a couple different places, but I'd never done any prep for this. But I went and took this class. It's a 6 days and this one was in Portland. 6 days of sensory testing, which is cupping. So you're smelling, tasting, preparing, taking written and sensory tests. There's like 21 or 22 tests throughout the whole week.
Okay.
And I ended up passing all of that and getting my Q graders license. At that time there were 3,500 of them in the world.
Not many.
So
good for you.
I think probably I do.
Yeah.
Maybe a slight super taster. Yeah. So I'm really picky about the way it tastes. Also, but everything that I've led up to, all of the growing practices, the harvesting practice, and the processing affects how the coffee tastes and how it stores and how it roasts. And I'm finding a lot of times the more sustainably grown it is, the better quality is. Not always. That's not always the case. But so I'm buying organic. It's not all certified organic because a lot of growers can't afford that process. But that's one of the things that the importers do. They work with a lot of these growers in perfecting their quality and improving their farming practices and their processing practices. And they bring a lot of people together, different growers together into co-ops with a community washing station or a regional washing processing station.
Yeah.
So I really, it's very difficult to know because I'm not going to Origin because I'm one person operation.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult to know exactly, but try to find to use a reputable. I use Royal Coffee a lot out of San Francisco.
Is that another broker kind of?
They're a pretty big importer, and they really work. They have a line. They have their own farms that they've invested in also.
Yeah.
That they work with the people there, and they provide them funding when they need it, and
nice.
for the communities. There's a lot of community. There's a lot of effects that coffee has on communities.
Positive
also.
or negative, I'd imagine.
Both.
Yeah.
So you try to, it provides a lot of people income for their kids to get education and medical care and all kinds of stuff. So,
yeah. I think it's really neat that I, as a consumer, can know, in a sense, where my, in this case, coffee came from. I think that's really powerful.
It is.
It gives you a sense of not just connection, but I think it's special. It definitely just adds to the overall experience.
Right.
And it just, I think it brings a smile to my face going, okay, I know that these, I imagine these people are being taken care of more than other situations.
Right. And I'm trying to do more and more of that. And the biggest thing is that a lot of my coffees now, I can trace it back to the grower. I actually have a lot of these bags. This is a blend, but but I can tell you where the Sumatra that's out of here is a women's co-op coffee.
Okay.
I'm getting it from a co-op in Sumatra that Ratu Kitiara.
Okay.
That they have a few growers, but they all come together in their processing and combine their coffee.
Okay.
So it's from the women's co-op, and it's allowing. I have another one like this from Kenya. It's allowing women to actually take responsibility and have some of their own financial means.
They're taking care of themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And teaching them how to take care of themselves and
Yeah.
not have to rely on somebody else to take care of them always.
That's powerful.
Yes.
That is really neat.
So I'm trying to there are a few more of those popping up.
Okay.
And I have like the one over here, the grower, the Honduras is, Finca Elizabeth, that's the name of their farm.
Okay.
And, but you'll see on the bags that a lot of my coffees have the grower's name on them now. Or at least the co-op name if it's multiple
if you can
growers.
get it back. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Man, where do you even start? Are you able to go to a company like Royal and just really start to learn?
They do a lot of educational.
Yeah, I think you as a roaster, I mean, you need to have a lot of information in a sense to start with, and it's not something that you can just pop on the internet and find actual reputable, truthful information.
Yeah, exactly.
Not all the time. So
they are starting now. When I first started, this wouldn't have happened, but now they're sending every time I order coffee, they send me the certifications for. They'll send everything with it. There has to be a chain.
Gotcha.
Organic or rainforest certification, whichever certifications they have, if they have them.
Yeah.
They have the whole story of the roast of the growers on there, and they're, like I said, they are going to Origin and working with people at Origin to do that. So,
man,
I like some traveling. I tend to like traveling around the U.S. in a camper.
Oh yeah,
but we've kind of slowed down on that. We've been doing stuff with the house, and since moving to Prescott and retiring, we don't find the need to escape as much.
Makes sense.
So I like being at home, and so we're not doing a lot of traveling anymore. And international travel is, I'm not good at sitting on an airplane for any length of time.
It's hard. Question: where's Sumatra?
It's an Indonesian island.
Indonesian island.
It's in the Indonesian chain in the West Indies.
Okay.
And Sumatra's one of the bigger islands.
Okay.
There's also Sulawesi. I don't have any Sulawesi right now, but that's you put out some delicious coffees.
Okay.
They're very, very earthy, Sulawesi. Some people
Okay.
really don't like them.
All right.
Papua New Guinea, that's another one I have. That's an Indonesian.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, right now there's Colombian in this. It's a fair trade organic Colombian.
Okay.
So sometimes I try to keep the flavor profile the same in my blends, but I have to change coffees sometimes because from year to year,
Things
that's
change.
another thing is the harvest from one year to another year, the coffee quality will change a little bit. So
It makes sense. The tree's not perfect.
no, and there's pests and climate change is
Stuff
affecting
happens.
coffee growing regions badly.
Okay.
So, which is another reason for searching sustainably grown stuff, because if they're leaving more of the rainforest intact, we're keeping some of the carbon sequestered. So
Okay.
I'm I have to think about that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to build a food forest in my backyard. We have a
Ah.
half acre up there, and
Okay.
so I'm working on nut trees and
Nice.
a regenerative type of gardening,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay. I need to stop by. Say, hey, Dan.
So
Remember me?
right now I have woodpeckers attacking my fruit trees.
Yeah.
Because
So I did a podcast with Eric Moore, the owner of Jay's Bird Barn.
yes,
You
I
ought to
saw a
listen.
little bit of that.
It's really interesting. I learned that woodpeckers one woodpecker in a given fall for a couple months will pack almost 100,000 acorns. They'll store them in trees or basically wherever they can store them. So right now is the season where they're almost 24/7 finding acorns over here and storing them on
Really?
kind of like they literally have one or two trees that's their tree, and that's where they store them, and then they fly over. He calls it a woodpecker highway because you'll just see them go back and forth. They'll find the acorns and store them. So that's probably why you have a little more activity than normal.
Well, what I'm finding is they make little holes, and the only thing I could find was there's a pattern of holes around my apple tree trunk.
Okay.
Little tiny holes, pretty consistently spaced, and now there's like 3 rows.
Okay.
And what they do is they make a little hole that makes sap leak out. It makes insects attract to it, and they can come and eat the insects.
They're smart.
And so that's what I'm finding out they're doing.
That's
And so I have to
hilarious.
cover all of those
Yeah.
trunks because they'll
Stop
kill my
eating
trees.
my trunk. Yeah, exactly.
They'll kill all my fruit trees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, I moved from coffee to fruit trees.
Yeah. Speak a little bit to the different topography that provides different flavor. And obviously the flavor profile is very wide. You've used the earthy, there's fruity and different things. Just
It'll
speak
have
a little bit.
So Arabica coffee. Arabica is one of the. I don't even know what family. If it's family genus.
Okay.
Coffee is the
Like
plant, right? The base. So you have Arabica and Robusta.
Yep.
Those are 2 different types. Under Arabica, there are several different types
Okay.
of coffee beans. So there's bourbon, there's Marigold-Gype, there's Paranema,
Okay.
Pacamara. In Africa, you'll have SL34, SL28. There's a whole lot of little different types of that one species of coffee.
All right.
So they're different sizes and shapes slightly. Some will be bigger and a little less dense. Some are very small, tiny, like a pea berry.
Okay.
Well, a pea berry is actually not a type. That is a phenomenon of where it's grown.
Okay.
Some of the coffees are very high grown, and the seed, which coffee bean is a seed,
Yeah.
that's in there will not split completely. It'll be
Okay.
from one seed that's more round, so it's not split in half. It won't split in half. So normally in the coffee tree you'll have these 2 seeds like this, and when those split in half, each one is a coffee bean, right? And in the pea berry, that stays one. So it's more round. It'll be a very little round bean.
All right.
And you can tell when you see them. Now, the higher it's grown, the smaller and more dense that bean will be. The moisture in the air the moisture that year will change that also. It'll make it, if it on drier years, there won't be as much, and it'll maybe be a little less dense. As far as topography, most areas that grow coffee are mountainous.
Okay.
And volcanic.
Oh.
There's a lot of volcanic soil is incredibly fertile.
Really?
Yeah.
That seems counterintuitive. It seems like it would.
It provides a ton of it creates a ton of nutrients for some reason.
Yeah.
If you look at old volcanic areas, stuff grows out of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're also all around. There's also a strip about 10 degrees either side of the equator, all around the planet, where coffee grows for the most part.
Okay.
It's a very temperate, but it's high areas because it's hot there, and it's in the higher areas. It's a little cooler, but it's moist.
Yep.
It's all rainforest type.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Wet.
And anywhere between 1,100 to 2,300 meters.
Okay.
Pretty average.
All right.
There are lower grown coffees that Brazil grows a lot of theirs lower, lower altitude, 8 to 900 meters maybe.
All right.
And the lower grown coffees tend to be a little bit more mild, less dense.
Okay.
A little bit. So it just,
Yeah.
I can tell you topography, but it's very similar.
Yeah.
Things that change it are how they're growing it, if they're using chemicals or not.
Okay. That makes sense.
Really try to get coffee that doesn't have a lot of that they're not using chemicals. Whether it's shade grown, whether it's we got somebody coming in right now, so
Tell them to walk right on through.
it's okay.
Come on in, guys. You're on camera.
You're fine. You can come in, just go through.
Say hi.
So the type of the bean, whether it's one of the bigger, less dense beans, the climate that year, if it's a really wet year, it's going to change the coffee flavor a little bit. Coffee, so they pick the cherries. They either soak them, and they either wash them and take the cherry off right away.
Okay.
And then they ferment the bean, and there's a little parchment layer underneath that cherry on top of the bean.
Mm-hmm.
They ferment it in that parchment for a number of days, and then they take the parchment off.
Okay.
The parchment's like a little rigid paper kind of thing.
Like parchment paper in cooking.
A little bit, yeah. So that's a washed method. They'll soak the coffee cherry, pull it off in water. There are dry methods where they ferment it right in the coffee cherry, and then they take the cherry off and the parchment. And then there's which is very similar. It's actually dry and natural are very similar.
Okay.
And then there's a honey process, which is a natural method also, where a lot of times honey process, they'll take the outside of the peel of the cherry off, and then they leave the mucilage, the fruit that's under the peel, on the bean for maybe a couple weeks.
Yep.
But they stir that that has to be tossed like every hour.
Wow.
Stirred up so that it doesn't mold and rot.
Yeah.
And it's just fermenting the cherry or fermenting the bean with the flavors out of that fruit, but they're different lengths of time. Then they'll take that cherry off. So there's a lot of once it's harvested, it may have another 2 months of processing.
The amount of variables. Oh my goodness.
So everything they do changes it. So the type of bean, whether it's a bourbon or a Marigold or it just the type of bean that it is, the altitude that it was grown at, the climate that year, how long it's fermented and dried, a lot of I have blood on my hands from something. A lot of the Indonesian coffees, this Sumatra and my Bali, I have a Balinese coffee over there, are wet hold coffees. Those coffees, they pull them off. They get so much rain in these areas that they can't leave it to dry for very long. So they pick them. They may let it ferment in that. They may let it ferment in that overnight or for 24 hours.
Yeah.
But then they take off the cherry. They run them through like a grater.
Okay.
They take the cherry off, or they either wash them or grind the cherry off.
Yeah.
And then this Sumatra, I believe that they are soaking it, and then they pull that cherry off within 24 hours, and they go right to taking the parchment off. So while the bean is still wet inside of the parchment, they take that parchment off. So a lot of Sumatra coffees, you'll see little nicks in the bean.
Okay.
That's from taking the parchment off while the bean is wet.
Gotcha.
And then they will dry those beans a lot of times on raised beds, but also a lot of times on dirt patios. So you'll get a lot of Indonesian coffees that have a little more earthy flavor.
Yeah, because
It's
of
because
that.
they're absorbing flavor from the ground.
Yeah.
But they're delicious. They're very really complex coffees, super heavy body, and that's what half of that is. This Howlin' at the Moon. The other, like I said, the other one is a washed South American or Latin American coffee.
Yeah.
So that'll change the nature of it. Ethiopian coffees tend to be, they're usually pretty dense, small coffees.
Okay.
It depends on the coffee, but they will be, it depends on if it's a longberry also, because there are some longberry coffees from Harar that are longer and skinnier that are still kind of dense, but they'll have a super strong berry, blueberry, or flavor like that.
Okay.
Ethiopians tend to be very floral and fruity, like the one you're drinking.
Yeah, that's what you made me. Okay.
And what's interesting is that you're starting to, even in Africa, we're starting to be able to get relationship coffees directly from growers, and that's a new thing.
Explain that.
At one time, you couldn't buy coffee out of most parts of Africa without going through their auction, their government auction. So you're just buying lots of coffee, a lot that they've blended. They'll blend it according to different quality standards, and usually for them it was size.
Okay.
But the size of the bean.
Yeah.
It'll be a screen
That doesn't
size.
seem, though, to help you very much as the roaster.
So sometimes it's hit or miss what you get. It'd be quality, size, and cleanliness of the bean. And they'll have grade 1, 2, 3, 4, depending. Ethiopia, interestingly enough, a lot of times their grade 4 coffees have a lot more flavor than their grade 1 coffees, and they're supposed to be a lower quality coffee.
Go figure.
But they're more fruity and floral. Thank you. Okay.
You're famous, by the way. You're on camera.
I'm in the Hot Dog Hall of Fame.
Hot, yeah. There you go.
2008. Overall hot dog excellence.
So there is a lot to learn about coffee, and a lot of different things affect the quality in your cup.
You could learn about this your entire life and still be
I'm still
almost
learning.
a novice in a sense. I mean, because coffee has grown all over the world in all different.
Yep.
Obviously, the climate is somewhat similar, but the topography is different, and that is just. I mean, if you, that's why I've geeked out a little bit about learning, and that's why I love hearing these things. It's what a neat thing that we get to participate in.
It's cool. It's very neat.
Yeah.
Then there's, once you get it, it gets to, I get samples from the people that I use to bring it in. I try to sample everything before I purchase it. I can't always, but...
In terms of you'll get the green bean, roast it, and...
Yeah, test it for quality and
that's a lot of work.
Flavor profile. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
Yes. So, and I've gotten to, especially after doing the Q grader class, I realized, okay, I really need to do this more often. So I do it more often. I try to do several months worth of my coffee. But I'm having to do it year round, really.
Okay.
So and that's the other thing is harvests are
Different.
pretty much year round. Yeah.
Okay.
It varies depending on where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Some of them are, but they're like, there's some in South America that are harvesting a couple times a year.
Oh, wow.
It'll be a fly crop. Colombia is one of them.
Okay.
So.
Interesting. Man. Are you having fun doing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am. I'm still not really making a lot of money. I don't make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But that's not really my motive.
I didn't imagine you were doing it for the money.
I really am not.
Yeah.
I really like coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd like to make it keep it sustainable if we can.
Mm-hmm.
There are some big companies that are still buying the cheapest quality coffee they can buy.
Of course.
The growers are not making anything, so
Yeah.
it still supports a really bad economic situation in those countries. And if people would just move away from all that commercial coffee, it would a lot of those people that are growing these would be able to move into different. They could
Do a lot more. That's for sure. Yep. I think we're going to see a renaissance of that in a lot of spaces.
I hope so.
I think we are.
That all kind of goes right along with our climate issues.
Exactly.
Because we're just supporting all this huge mono agriculture.
That's it. Yep. One day, stuff's going to hit the fan. Whether you think it has or it will. Yeah. Man, I love hearing about all this stuff. You are a coffee nerd, and I love it.
I am.
And I love it.
So anyway,
yeah.
I have I'm roasting coffee for Joe. You've
Okay.
seen that, Joe?
Yeah, so talk about, now that you're here in Prescott, you roast coffee. Who do you roast it for, and how can people get it if they can get it from you?
I do have a website. I still have a clientele of people in the valley
Okay.
that started buying from me years ago.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a website, roastedot.com.
Okay.
I roast coffee for Joe of Campground Tea and Coffee. Jessica at Grandma's Bakery.
Okay.
She's using my coffee. Cuppers has started using it for their. They have I do a medium roast for them for their drip.
For drip. All right.
Mm-hmm. And then you can buy it by the bag if you want at Prescott Meat Company.
Oh, okay.
He's started carrying it. And then at Bikesmith, they're putting their own sticker on
Yep.
it.
Andrew over there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
Man.
I was doing the Barley Hound. I think they've kind of backed off a little. I don't think they were going through a lot of coffee.
Okay.
So I don't know what he's doing now.
Okay.
If he's still doing it. I think he had to shut down for a while.
Exactly.
So
The whole restaurant
this
industry
is kind
definitely
of
taking a turn. Have you seen a decline in the need for beans?
Actually, no.
Yeah.
My need went up.
What a shocker.
I know.
I mean, liquor sales went through the roof.
Yeah.
We're talking about COVID.
Right.
Or in this time where
Exactly.
some things have absolutely come to a screeching halt,
Yeah.
where other things have not.
I think a lot more. Well, Joe's business, his trailer definitely picked up my business.
Okay.
But
Good.
I think a lot more people are just doing stuff at home. I'm trying to just I don't even have a lot of equipment on my website because I'm trying not to use mediocre things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm putting some equipment on there, but it's stuff that I actually use at home.
Gotcha. In terms of how you can make your coffee.
About brewing the coffee.
Okay.
And I need to put a section in my website on learning on brewing and methods and stuff like that. Yeah. I don't know. I suppose I could do it as a blog, but I don't know if I have that much energy.
That's the difference. I was like, I'll tell you how to do it. That's the simple, not easy thing.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'll put in all that information and you said you've done some artwork or artistic type stuff. So just real quick, I'm going to guess that there's a piece of artwork in the bathroom that you made.
No, I did not make those.
Okay. That's really cute, by the way. I really like that.
I love those Those paintings are from my father-in-law's, or Actually, my husband's grandfather brought those in.
Okay.
He brought those in. I believe he got those sometime after World War II.
Oh, wow.
And my mother-in-law had those hanging in her house for years. And I just always liked them, and they moved, and
There
we're
you
going to get rid of a lot of those. So I ended up with a bunch of
Scooped
them.
up.
Yeah.
So as far as artwork for you, what do you do?
I'm not doing
Or-
a lot of it anymore.
Okay.
Because we're doing a lot of work on our house.
Gotcha.
Actually, I do. I've done all of our tiling. I do, but I do very creative type tiling.
Okay.
Like I did our bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
our whole master bath. When I did it, it's got the little stream with the river rock with some.
Yes.
I found a lady that does ceramic, artistic ceramic tiles where she had a section of fish, of trout, rainbow
Mm-hmm.
trout, and stuff like that. So I do my creative stuff
Man,
that way in
okay.
our house right now.
Yeah, you don't sit around at all.
I don't sit
This
around
is the
a
most.
whole
You're gonna
lot.
have to get up really soon. The timer's about to go off for
Yes.
Laurie to get up and.
So I
move
do.
around.
Yeah, I was an art. I started doing artwork when I was very young.
Okay.
But it just kind of migrates into every aspect, into my cooking and my coffee roasting and
Yeah. Your life.
my life
Your
pretty
life.
much.
Yeah.
My backyard and
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Okay. Couple more things before we wrap up. What is it about the greater Prescott area
Oh,
that keeps you here?
aside from not enough water, the climate. It's a good climate. You know, we still get seasons. My husband and I both very attracted to the mountains. Like I said, I grew up in Iowa, which can be very claustrophobic. There are tons of water there. There's a lot of water. There are hills and dells, basically. So,
Okay.
but most towns are in a river valley. If you think about being in a river valley, you have a very limited distance of sight. So you can see about a half mile a lot of times, unless you get up on an interstate, and then you can see over the whole
Of course.
state, but it's all cornfield. It's not all.
No.
See, and that's an exaggeration too. I was very beautiful. It's green,
Yeah.
very rolling. It's all rolling hills. But the first time I went to the mountains when I was about 12, I believe, we went to over. My dad got sent to Montana or somewhere to work, and we went over there, and I was like,
Oh.
so I was very attracted to that at a young age, and once I moved to Arizona, I was like, all right, that's it.
Okay.
It's a beautiful state. This is a great area. We have a huge trail system here that we're both mountain bikers.
Good.
The big mountain biker community that actually helps with the trail building. We
Yeah.
have a trail builder that works for the city,
Okay.
which is unheard of. He actually is in charge of being a liaison between the Forest Service and the city to make this trail
Yep.
system that goes through all the areas that all connects. So we have really good access to trails here, which a lot of places you don't get.
Okay.
You don't have that in the Midwest, where it's all private. Most land
makes
is
sense.
private unless it's a state park, and there's not a lot of public space. I really like that we have a lot of public space
Okay.
around us.
That's
it's
neat.
you know,
Yep.
I could use a little more humidity.
Yeah, it's as dry as a bone here.
Yep.
I told you that's why I'm not drinking a cup of coffee in the morning. It just
Yes.
it really dries me out throughout the day. So
Yep.
it's like I can only drink so much water, Laurie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You got to get your gallon a day in.
Yeah. Yeah. So you stay active. Man, you're just not going to stop, which is
No.
this is actually an area. I don't know how. I've got a background in psychology. So since I've moved up here and a lot of people retire up here, I'm really fascinated by those people I see doing things versus those people I don't see who are not doing. And in a sense, when you're not doing, you're just not going to last that long. And so I'm just really trying to figure out, is there anything that I can do to help get people out? We have such an amazing area.
We have a huge access to
Oh my goodness.
beautiful land, beautiful
And so,
spaces.
I'm glad that you and Dan work. Period.
And Dan doesn't. He's not working. He works though by. We do a lot of projects for friends and family and stuff too.
That's
so
what I mean. Work.
we're always building something
Yeah.
or making something or making my food. I got him in the backyard working
Good. Good.
with the shovel.
Yeah.
A lot of times, but
Yeah. No, it just
and I
keeps
do my
you going.
share of that.
We have a great place to spend a lot of time outside. It's-
So I spend a lot of time there because I like being at my home. And we're still working on the house. We bought an older, it's a 1965 ranch house that we've completely redone. And we're still finishing. My sustainability even moves to my house finishes.
Okay.
My flooring, we went to Texas, got a load of mesquite. I don't know if you've seen the mesquite trees that grow in Texas, but South Central Texas, they are bulldozing mesquite trees to build subdivisions. So there are several mills that take all that old mesquite and they mill it into flooring.
Okay.
And we went over there and got a whole load of mesquite.
Yeah.
That's what's on our floor.
Okay.
It's super hard and
Oh,
it has a
it's-
very low expanding rate. It
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
expand and contract a lot. So the floor's super stable. It's beautiful. We had dogs on the floor, no scratching,
Yeah.
nothing. It doesn't
Yeah,
scratch.
it's a hard wood.
Yeah, it doesn't dent.
Okay.
So we use that
Yeah.
and we finish it with tongue oil.
Tongue.
Real tongue oil. Yeah.
Okay.
Pure tongue oil diluted with some citrus solvent.
All right.
Which is made from orange peels, basically. And that's how we finish the floor, but it takes a while. You have to do like 3 coats or 4 coats every day. You do a coat,
Okay.
a coat, a coat, a coat. So 4 days in a row. And then I have to let it cure for 10 days to 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then I'm going to cover it with like a waxed construction paper
Okay.
for about a month. So it completely cures,
Yeah.
and that actually, then I can go back and buff it.
No kidding.
So it's kind of a long process, but it doesn't have all of the petroleum
it's
distillates
not
in
plastic. I mean,
it. Yeah. And
are you in that process currently?
we're finishing the very last. We did our house. We did some things in a couple different phases.
You have to.
So we did part of the floor, and now a couple years ago we took out the fireplace
Okay.
and the end wall and added to the living room a little bit. We enclosed it in a storage area.
Okay.
And we had to put more flooring
Yes.
down, so that we hadn't sealed. So we're finally getting
Okay.
to where we're finishing that.
I want to
So,
come over.
It's
I really
very
want to see.
interesting.
Yeah. I like
You're
unique.
welcome to come
I'm obsessed with unique.
We have metal on the front of our house, so it's
Okay.
kind of a
Yeah.
unique look. There's nobody else with metal on the front of the house up in the
Yeah.
Sandia Hills up there.
Because they're mostly 1960s
Right.
siding or maybe block in that case.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
So
Okay.
anyway,
Well,
did I miss anything?
you nailed a lot. To wrap it up, I'm going to ask you 7 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Just answer the first thing that comes to mind. Or if you have more than one answer, give me that too. First question.
Okay.
What's your favorite thing about Greater Prescott?
Probably the square. I still like having a town square.
What's your favorite restaurant in Greater Prescott?
Oh, that's not fair.
That's why I said you can say more than one.
Dee's Thai, Barley Hound, Biga. The Monahan barbecue. First time I had it last week. It was delicious.
Really good.
Yes.
What's the number one thing on your Greater Prescott bucket list?
Finish my food forest.
What's your favorite all-time coffee bean?
That's very difficult. Probably it's got to be my Ethiopian Harar. An Ethiopian, which has changed names, but
Is that what I'm drinking? It's really good. It is so good. What are 3 words to describe living in Greater Prescott?
mountains, I guess, small community and views. How about views?
If you weren't a retired firefighter coffee roaster, what would you be doing?
Who knows? It's probably baking pies for somebody.
You really like that.
Yeah, I do. I like baking.
That's really fun. Last question. What's your favorite summer activity in Greater Prescott?
Gardening, I suppose, now. I actually mountain bike too, but I can't do that in the summer. It's too hot.
Is it too hot for you?
Other reason
You're
I
from
moved up here.
Phoenix. Come
I
on.
destroyed my thermal regulation system
Gotcha.
working in the Valley Fire Service. Yeah, it's thyroid stuff. I just
Okay. Makes sense.
crippled because you overheat. We got overheated
Oh.
a couple times. And
A couple?
It makes it, yeah. It makes it very, the biggest and the most notable was being on a roof and removing roof tiles after a fire. So, in middle of June.
Of course.
Super, super hot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it ruins all your, I get hot too easy.
Okay. Interesting.
I can't-
It's weird you say that because I was born and raised in Tucson, outside all the time, and then when I was in Phoenix, I worked commercial landscaping and on golf courses for 10 years. And there was a point, and there wasn't a day, but there was a point in my life when I thought, this is just, I just can't do this anymore. And so even here, when it's say 95, which
Yep.
compared to the valley is cooler, it hurts me. And so
Yeah.
I think I've harmed myself in that sense.
Yeah, it's very easy to do, and people really underestimate how bad it is for you because
Yeah.
I created some, and systemic issues with that.
Okay. All right. To finally wrap it up, you've already shared once, but I'll have you do it one more time. Tell people where they can find you, and one more time what other shops around here they can get some of your coffee.
All right. I have a website, roastedot.com. I don't know if I need to spell that.
Nope,
It's
I will put in
pretty
all this
simple.
information.
All right. I have it's on Instagram also.
Okay.
And, Joe with Campgrounds Tea and Coffee has a trailer. He's on the square 3 or 4 days a weekend at the farmer's market. He has it. Jessica, Grandma's Bakery underneath St. Michael's, that has it. She's got a really good older, it's like Italian style bakery.
Oh, it's fantastic.
She has some great stuff out of there. And then Prescott Meat Company out on Gurley is a new meat shop. They have great meats, and they're selling my coffee by the bag.
Okay.
I'm going to be delivering some this morning. And then Bikesmith has this blend.
Okay.
It's their Enduro blend. And they're relabeled
Cute
it
name,
also.
Andrew.
So
Yeah.
he's selling it there.
Yep. Well, thanks for sharing all of this.
Oh, and Cupper's drip coffee.
That's right.
Their medium
Yeah.
roast is usually mine. So,
And it's served at my house too.
and then Matt.
Yeah. No, Emily and I just love it. We love
Good.
drinking your
Well,
coffee.
thank you.
There's nothing like drinking a quality bean. There's just once you do it, you realize, oh my gosh, it's hard to go back.
Yes, all my energy goes into making sure it tastes right, or
Yeah.
it's, and it's sustainable coffee.
Good.
So.
Well, you're sustaining my family and I think
Good.
quite a few others. So thanks for sharing everything. This is so much fun.
Thank
I know
you.
this is your everyday, this is your life, but it's fun to get a glimpse inside and get to learn about coffee and about your background. It's so much fun. You're a dancer. Then you turn into a firefighter, which
nuts.
that whole athletic, just ability, and then the coffee thing. It's so much fun to connect dots, and I really enjoy it.
It's been quite a road.
Yeah. And now you're a house contractor.
Right. Yeah. Well, I drew. See, that's my other artwork. I drew all the plans.
Okay.
We did some major remodeling, and I drew the plans for all the structural stuff.
Okay.
So
Good
I
job.
do that too.
And
I
good
like to
job,
draw.
Dan, for helping.
Yep, he does a ton.
I bet.
Who do you think takes care of the house?
Yeah, right.
Not me.
Yep. Guys, thanks for watching. If
Thank
you have
you.
any questions, shoot her an email.
Yep.
Send her a message.
Oh yeah,
Just let her know.
Laurie at roastedot.com.
Okay. Very simple. So, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate yours.
Let's wrap it up with a nice big smile.
Thank you.